Okay, so before we jump into things, I want you to think about a brand you absolutely love. Like, not just like, but love, you know? The one you'd pick even if their competitor, like, magically had the same product for half the price.
Hmm. That's interesting.
Okay.
It usually goes way beyond just the product itself.
Yeah, totally. It's the whole vibe, the feeling you get. And this research paper we're diving into today, Crafting Brand Narratives, really dives into this whole idea of aesthetics.
The art and science of design.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And how it all works together.
It's incredible how fast our brains actually make judgments about a brand, just purely based on visuals.
Really?
We're talking milliseconds.
Milliseconds.
A fraction of a
Yeah,
second.
literally before we've even had time to process what we're seeing.
That is wild.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. I mean, we're such visual creatures these days.
Exactly. Our world is so visual.
Yeah.
And these visuals aren't just about looking pretty. They're sending these signals about quality, innovation, and even a brand's values.
I like that. Their values.
Like if you think about Apple, for example.
That sleek and minimalist design, it instantly whispers sophisticated and cutting edge.
Yeah,
Right.
it totally does. And the packaging itself, it's almost like a status symbol.
Yeah.
You know, you're not just buying a phone, you're buying an experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this research paper actually talks about the unboxing of an Apple product
Oh, really?
is actually designed to evoke this feeling of sophisticated simplicity.
That is fascinating.
That's very
Yeah.
intentional.
Okay, so it's not just Apple either. What about Tesla? I feel like every line on their cars just screams like future
Oh, yeah.
sustainability.
It screams future. It's visual shorthand for their entire brand message.
And then you have a company like Patagonia where their ads use like all these earthy tones and rugged imagery.
Mhm.
So you know what they stand for like before you even read a single word.
That's the power of aesthetics.
Yeah.
It's like this visual language that speaks directly to our subconscious.
It's so powerful.
Hmm.
So, okay, let's break it down then. What are some of the elements that shape how we perceive brands? Like what is this visual language?
Well, color theory is a big one.
Okay.
This research paper really dives deep into it and how different colors evoke specific emotions and associations.
Interesting.
For example, red is known to trigger excitement and a sense of urgency,
Okay.
which is why you see it used a lot for like sales and clearance events.
That makes sense. Red makes you think act now.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so what about blue then? I feel like that's everywhere.
Blue is often associated with trust and stability.
Okay.
So that's probably why it's so popular with like financial institutions and tech companies.
Interesting. So they're visually saying, hey, we're reliable. You can trust us with your money and data.
Exactly.
Okay. But isn't color tricky, though? I mean, it can mean different things in different cultures, right?
Oh, absolutely. What might represent good luck in one culture could symbolize mourning in another.
Right.
So brands really need to do their research when they're expanding globally.
That's a really good point. Okay, so we've talked about color. What about typography? I mean, font choice seems like such a small detail, but I feel like it really can impact how you see a brand.
It's more than just a small detail.
Okay.
This research paper actually highlights how powerful typography is. It's about selecting the right typeface size color, even the spacing, to match a brand's personality.
Right.
So a sleek sans serif font might signal innovation,
Okay.
while a traditional serif font might suggest reliability.
That's so interesting because it's true. You see those different fonts and you immediately get a different feeling about that brand.
It's subtle, but it's there.
Yeah. You know, and this research paper actually mentions how Nike uses completely different visuals on their Instagram versus their LinkedIn page.
Oh, yeah.
Same brand, totally different vibes.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how they tailor their approach for different audiences.
Right. And that highlights how important visual hierarchy is,
Okay.
especially in today's world where we have so much information overload. You need to use elements like size and placement to guide the viewer's eye and help them digest information really quickly.
So like using bold, large fonts for headlines to like grab attention.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, you get those websites where there's just so much visual clutter.
Oh,
You don't even know where to
that's-
look first, and you just leave.
Yes. The worst.
Yeah. Nobody wants that.
Okay, so we've got color typography. What about layout and composition? I mean, how does the arrangement of all these visual elements impact the message?
Layout and composition are key for directing the viewer's gaze.
Okay.
This research paper actually dives into how principles like balance, contrast, and alignment create this sort of visual flow that either enhances or detracts from the message.
So it's not just about having cool visuals. It's about putting them together in a way that actually guides the viewer's experience.
Precisely. Think about a magazine layout.
Okay.
There's a reason why headlines are big and bold.
Right.
Images are strategically placed to draw your eye. It's all about guiding the reader through the content in a way that feels natural and engaging.
This all makes sense, but it's all design. What about art itself? Like, it's got to play a bigger role in branding than just decoration, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Huh.
Art brings emotion into the equation.
Okay.
It helps create a distinct brand personality that sets it apart from the competition.
Yeah.
Think about those iconic Absolut Vodka ads.
Oh, yeah, I remember those. They turned their bottles into like canvases almost,
Yes.
collaborating with artists to create these really unique pieces. And I bet that resonated with a much more creative audience
Absolutely.
than just like a regular vodka ad would.
Exactly. And then there's Nike.
Okay.
They've really taken art collaborations to another level, especially with their Air Max Day campaigns, where they release limited edition sneakers
Right.
inspired by various art forms.
Oh, that's cool.
They become instant collector's items.
It's like they're elevating sneakers to the level of art. And it's not just about the product. It's about this whole culture around it.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
And design plays a crucial role in amplifying that art. using elements like color and typography to communicate the brand's story.
Like how Apple's minimalist design actually reinforces their message of innovation and sophistication.
Precisely.
It's like, we're so confident in our product that we don't need to shout about it.
Yeah. The simplicity speaks volumes.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so we've talked about art, but then there's this whole world of social media,
Right.
which I feel like is just the wild west of visual branding.
It is.
Everything is so image-driven now, especially on platforms like Instagram and Pinterest.
Yeah. Social media has been a game changer. It allows brands to be more agile. They can respond to trends in real time and experiment with all these different approaches.
And let's not forget user-generated content. Seeing real people using and loving a product, it's like so much more persuasive than any fancy ad campaign.
Oh, absolutely. It's like word of mouth on steroids.
It totally is. I mean, it's like social proof. We trust our peers more than we trust brands, right?
Exactly. So seeing those authentic experiences with a product can be super influential.
It's like when you're scrolling through Instagram and you see a friend wearing a cute outfit, and suddenly you're like checking out that brand's page and like adding things to your cart.
It happens all the time.
It does. But with all these platforms and all these like ever-changing trends, it must be a nightmare for brands to try and maintain a cohesive visual identity.
It is a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a constantly shifting puzzle.
Yeah.
And there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
But one thing that's crucial is balancing aesthetics with functionality.
Okay.
You can have the most beautiful website in the world,
Right.
but if it's a nightmare to navigate, people are going to leave.
Totally. It's like those packaging designs that look so cool when you're at the store,
Yeah.
but then you get home, you can't even open the darn thing.
Exactly.
It's so frustrating.
Aesthetics should enhance functionality, not fight against it.
They should work together.
Yeah. It's about finding that sweet spot where form and function work seamlessly.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here, from the power of aesthetics and like those key design principles to the role of art and even like the influence of social media and how important it is to balance this beauty with functionality.
It's a lot to think about,
It is.
but it's a really fascinating world.
It is. And you know what? We've only just scratched the surface of this research paper. There is so much more to unpack. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break.
So we were talking about how important it is for brands to like find that balance between aesthetics and functionality. It's like that saying, you can't judge a book by its cover. But let's be honest,
Yeah.
we all totally do.
Oh, we do. It's human nature. We make these snap judgments based on visuals all the time.
And brands know this,
Yeah.
which is why they put so much time and effort into like crafting that visual identity.
It's that first impression.
Yeah, it can make or break you.
It can.
Okay, but with like so many platforms these days and consumer expectations,
Yeah.
how do brands even like begin to create an aesthetic strategy that actually works? Well, this research paper really emphasizes the importance of understanding your target audience.
Okay.
You need to know who you're talking to, what they value, and what kind of visual language is going to resonate with them.
Yeah, it's like you need to speak their visual language. I mean, you wouldn't use slang with your grandma, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just like spoken language has dialects, so does visual language. What might work for a Gen Z audience on TikTok might not land with millennials on Facebook.
So how do brands like decode these visual dialects? Do they just like throw things at the wall and see what sticks?
It's a bit more strategic than that. This research paper talks about data analysis and market research.
Okay.
Brands need to analyze consumer behavior, track trends, and be willing to experiment.
So it's a constant process of testing, learning, and adapting.
There's no magic formula.
There's no magic formula.
But that's also what makes it so interesting. The landscape is always evolving, so there's always room for innovation.
I love that. It keeps brands on their toes. Okay, speaking of things that keep brands on their toes, let's talk about cultural sensitivity. It's a globalized world now, and brands can't just assume that one aesthetic is going to work everywhere, right?
Oh, absolutely. Cultural sensitivity is paramount.
Yeah.
Colors, symbols, even design styles can have totally different meanings in different cultures.
Mm.
What might be considered trendy or sophisticated in one place could be offensive or completely miss the mark in another.
It's like a visual minefield.
It can be.
You take one wrong step and your whole message backfires.
This research paper actually mentions a few brands that learned this the hard way.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
There have been some pretty high-profile blunders,
Oof.
which is why research and understanding those nuances is so important.
Yeah.
It's not just about aesthetics being visually appealing, but they also need to be culturally appropriate.
So you're not just speaking the consumer's visual language, you're understanding their cultural context too, which adds a whole other layer of complexity.
It does.
Yeah.
But it's a complexity worth embracing because at the end of the day, you're trying to build connections.
Right.
And that requires sensitivity and respect.
Totally. Okay, let's switch gears for a sec and talk about something we touched on earlier, user-generated content or UGC. It's become like a force to be reckoned with in the branding world. What's your take on its power, especially when it comes to aesthetics?
I mean, this research paper actually dedicates an entire section to UGC.
Oh, wow.
It's authentic, it's relatable, and it taps into that social proof we were talking about earlier. People trust recommendations from their friends and family more than they trust brands.
Right.
So seeing real people using and loving a product can be really persuasive.
It's like when you see a friend post a picture wearing a cute outfit, and suddenly you're browsing that brand's website.
Right.
It feels so much more real.
Exactly. It's not a marketing ploy. It's coming from somebody you trust.
Yeah. Okay, but how do brands encourage this UGC? Do they just like cross their fingers and hope for the best? It's not quite. Successful brands actively encourage it. This paper talks about creating engaging social media campaigns, running contests, offering incentives.
So like those hashtag challenges where people post pictures of themselves using a product in a creative way.
Exactly. It's about getting people excited to participate and making it fun. So it's like a win-win for brands and consumers. Brands get authentic content and social proof, and consumers get to be a part of a community and maybe even get rewarded for their creativity.
It's a symbiotic relationship that's become super important in this social media age.
It really has. Something that's been on my mind this whole time is like the impact of technology on aesthetic strategies. It feels like everything is evolving so rapidly from the platforms we use to the way we consume content. How are brands even keeping up?
It's definitely a whirlwind of change, but it's also a time of incredible opportunity. This paper really dives into how technology is opening up a whole new world for aesthetic branding.
Okay, give us some examples. Like what kind of technological advancements are we talking about?
Yeah. Well, augmented reality, or AR, is a big one. It allows brands to create these interactive experiences that blend the physical and digital worlds.
Oh, like those virtual try-on features where you can see how a piece of clothing or makeup would look on you using your phone's camera.
Exactly. It's a game changer for industries like fashion and beauty.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And then there's virtual reality, or VR,
Okay.
which can create fully immersive brand experiences that literally transport you to another world.
Wow, so you're like stepping inside a brand's imagination?
It's wild.
I can see how that would be really powerful for building those emotional connections. But AR and VR are just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is becoming increasingly important, especially when it comes to personalization.
Okay.
These AI algorithms can analyze huge amounts of data to understand individual consumer preferences and then tailor experiences accordingly.
It's like having a personal stylist or a designer who knows your taste better than you do.
It's getting there.
That's both amazing and a little creepy.
It's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Okay, so we've got AI, and then there's this whole rise of data-driven design, where brands are using data analytics to inform their choices.
Right. It's not just about gut feeling anymore.
It's about combining that creative intuition with hard data.
Exactly.
Right.
By analyzing what's working, brands can make design decisions based on evidence rather than just guesswork.
I love that. It's like the perfect marriage of art and science. It's amazing to think about like how much technology has really changed this whole game of aesthetic branding.
Hmm.
We've gone from like static print ads to these crazy immersive digital experiences. Like it just makes me wonder what's next, you know?
Yeah, it really does highlight that aesthetics aren't static.
Hmm.
They're constantly evolving,
Yeah.
influenced by technology, cultural shifts, all of that.
Well, and speaking of cultural shifts, one thing that's become impossible for brands to ignore is this whole idea of sustainability. Consumers are way more aware now than ever before about the impact of their choices.
Right.
And that includes the brands that they support.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This research paper talks about how sustainability is no longer like a niche concern.
Right.
It's a core value for a lot of consumers, especially younger generations,
Okay.
and it's impacting their aesthetic preferences.
So it's not just about a brand looking good, it's about them doing good too.
Exactly. Consumers are savvy. They can spot greenwashing from a mile away.
Yeah.
They want to see that brands are walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
So it's got to be authentic.
It has to be.
Yeah.
And that means seeing evidence of sustainability in every aspect of the brand,
Okay.
from the materials they use to the packaging they choose.
Which is like eco-friendly packaging. That's not just like a bonus anymore.
Yeah.
It's becoming an expectation.
It's becoming the standard.
Mm.
This research paper cites studies showing that consumers are willing to pay more for products from brands that are demonstrably sustainable.
Wow. So sustainability is not just good for the planet. It's good for business too.
It is.
Yeah.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just about using recycled materials either. It's about the entire design process. Brands need to think about the environmental impact of all of their choices.
Of their aesthetic choices.
Yeah, from manufacturing to disposal.
So you're thinking about the entire life cycle of a product, not just how it looks when it's sitting on the shelf.
Exactly. It's about creating experiences that are not only beautiful and functional, but also sustainable.
I like that. Designing for the future.
Designing for the future. That's the term they use in the paper.
That's a good one. And we are seeing a shift in that direction. I mean, more and more brands are starting to like incorporate those sustainable practices into their aesthetic strategies.
Yeah.
They're using recycled materials, minimizing packaging, partnering with environmental organizations.
It's encouraging to see, for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think it just shows that brands are starting to like step up and really take responsibility for their impact.
But it's not just about altruism either.
Oh, okay.
The research shows that consumers are more loyal to brands that share their values.
Right.
So sustainability is a really powerful way to build trust and loyalty.
So it's like this virtuous cycle. Sustainability leads to stronger brand loyalty, which then encourages brands to be even more sustainable.
Exactly. Everyone wins, including the planet.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have covered a ton of ground today. We talked about the power of aesthetics, those key design principles, the role of art technology, cultural sensitivity, user-generated content, and this growing importance of sustainability. It's been fascinating.
Yeah, it's really complex.
It is.
But hopefully this deep dive has kind of opened your eyes to how much goes into creating a brand identity in today's world.
Yeah, it's like this crazy mix of art and science and strategy and psychology.
It's all connected.
It really is. You know, before we go, I want to circle back to something we talked about at the very beginning. Remember that feeling you get when you see a brand you love? Like you just instantly connect with it.
That feeling of, this brand gets me.
Yeah, exactly. And now thinking back on everything we've discussed today, I bet you're starting to see how aesthetics play a role in that.
All those little details.
Yeah, those carefully chosen colors, the typography, even those subtle cues about sustainability, it's all designed to create that feeling, that connection.
It's like a secret code embedded in the visual.
And once you learn how to decode it, you start to see it everywhere.
You can't unsee it.
So next time you're like drawn to a brand, just take a second and think about their aesthetic. What's the message they're trying to send?
And how does it make you feel?
Exactly. It's all about the feels.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with me today. It has been truly enlightening. And to all of you listening out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world of branding and design.